Oh, we can look at things. Oh hey! It's Falcon Ron. Fir Tree, Daddario, Rookie. Choose someone to learn what became of them since last time you met. Holy, this is gonna be a lot. This might be its own episode, like its own cut or specialty. I don't know. Falcon Ron. With the rights drawn to a close, the slug market's revenue fell perpetually. Falcon Ron was forced to liquidate his assets and close up shop. Yet, as is sometimes the case with those of interperpetual leaning, this time of hardship led to an epiphany, or at least a sudden change of fortune. One day, Falcon Ron had a run-in with a messenger imp bearing news from the other side. Ron gave to it one of his remaining trinkets, which could not be sold. The following week, the messenger imp returned to him bearing a tidy sum of wealth in newly minted coinage from the Sora Union. Let's read this. Our nation formed in 839 AS, after the fall of the Commonwealth. Falcon Ron cut a long-term deal with the messenger imp, and then and there. Though his trade remained a gray area from a legal standpoint in the Sora Union, Sauron Union, the newfound fame of the downside caused Falcon Ron's goods to explode in popularity. He later signed an elaborate agreement with Big Bertrude's and found a distribution partner on the other side with Rookie Greentail, whose own business had expanded. So Big Bertrude, up from one side, had things that she making, like potions and trinkets, being sold through him to Rookie Greentail. Especially in the Sauron Union, Falcon Ron's goods are still known for their superior quality, though he assumes no liability for any side effects. Oh, we're reading all of them. Let's go from the top down. Our side, then their side. When the cycle of the rites ceased turning, Fulford Sandalwood turned towards the starless sky and closed his eyes and prayed. It was all that he could do at the stage of his plan. He aspired to assemble with liberated exiles, representing each of the 8 largest ethnic groups composing a population of the Commonwealth. They would stand together as a vision of the 8 scribes returned. Inspiring the masses to embrace an older set of values from before the Commonwealth had tightened this grip. With the rites ending sooner than expected, the ideal scenario became impossible. Sandalwood's own freedom, for instance, was now forfeit, yet the plan did have contingencies. Word reached him that, on the night of the scribe's return, several of his fellow liberated Nightwings stood together, and their voices echoed through the streets. It was vital to Sandalwood that this stand against the Commonwealth be peaceful in its nature, but this proved to be untenable, especially after the High-Wing remnants appeared. There was speculation that their well-timed assault may not have happened by coincidence, though Sandalwood denied any involvement and regretted the bloodshed. Nevertheless, the main thrust of the plan had been achieved. So, I wonder if we sent Meetha back, there would have been no bloodshed. because everything is going to have its meaning. Like, for Meetha, she didn't want bloodshed or things like that. She might have been, like, maybe shifty, maybe, or whatever the word would be, but she still feel like that she had a good heart. So if she was sent back, that part of the story of no bloodshed of the war probably would have happened. Maybe. Where the rookie being on one side and Fir Tree being on the other side, Falcon Ron had the trade-in between them. So those part of the stories are being made for. Sandalwood kept busy after that, as much as possible, providing counsel from afar to those who would be at the forfeit of the birth of the Sauron, that's the word. Sauron Union. Of course, being stranded in the downside meant that there was only so much he could do. Resting assured that the future of the nation was in capable hands, he turned his attention to the remaining exiles of the downside. They might never return to that new nation, but at least they could experience its triumphs and its struggles in some various ways. So he took to his old work, writing and printing. As literacy began to spread again throughout the Sauron Union, so too did exiles of the downside take to it. For his part, Sandalwood helped to teach as many as he could. So, him being on this end, so it's cool how they did that. I mean, it's just like, things are going to happen. Just depending on which side is what story you're going to get. For him being in the downside still, he is still one that can read, and hence can write, and then can teach to read, and then for the others to learn theirs as well. For what it's worth, anyways. For those that are still trapped down there, they still feel like they have an accomplishment before they pass on in the downside. More than that, he provided the material to read, a semi-annual report about the latest events, both in the Sauron Union and the downside. This periodical gave many exiles something to look forward to. One of his allies in all this was the imp Keizo, with whom he traveled all across the downside. Sandalwood often cited Keizo as the wellspring of his own enthusiasm for a brighter future, such was the creature's spirit. He welcomed the company of the reader of the Nightwings at every opportunity, and counted him a trusted friend and a keen editor. He was pleased to hear that his one-time friend Orlek had once more become a productive part of his society, yet he spoke little of their time together. And it was a good choice. As Volfred Sandalwood gained more fame throughout this land for all of his sacrifices and his contributions, it is said that he remained steadfast about two things. The first was that the cause itself ought to remain in focus. The freedom that the people had achieved, it was a gift to be cherished, a set of values that needed to be nurtured. The second point he made was that he himself had little to do with the outcome. He would often praise the exiles of the Nightwings who had stood with him, each in turn by name. He never forgot any of them. One day, to commemorate his birthday, the people of the Sauron Union unveiled a monument depicting him and the Nightwings, as imagined in their prime. While Sandalwood did not learn of it until much later, it is said that he was moved to tears. Then by the gesture. It has hence ensured that those of us with memories more fallible than that of Sandalwood's likewise remembered the achievement of his fellow former exiles and our cause. That was one of the longest reads, but hey. So this definitely will be a part, like, we have all these people to go through, and I'm not going to let any of it pass up, because they put work into this. And the Book of Rights, which I did not read much. I did read some. That was like near the beginning of my series. I'm sorry, Supergiant Games, but I do love the game. It is beautiful. This is a beautiful game. Several exiles of the Nightwings cared more of the plan for the plan of Sandwood than to return home from the downside. The crone called Big Bertrude was a prime example. She had found a suitable environment to live within the dismal region known as the Flagging Hands. There, she had built up a thriving place of business known to many exiles in the land. With the rites having ended, she returned to her preoccupations, working away almost as though nothing had happened. When one gets to be more than 400 years of age, perhaps then even monumental events such as the culmination of the rites or the collapse of the Commonwealth are seen as trifling matters. Much of her efforts was doubtless due to the influence of Sandalwood, someone who she had admired now for decades. She had made clear that he could not requite her feelings for him, but what could have been a hurtful dismay lead only to a deeper understanding between them. She maintained an unlikely kinship with the harp, Meetha Thane, whom she had known during their time together in the Nightwings. They each had different strategies for dealing with life's day-to-day annoyances, a subject that they both found vital, if not fascinating, to no end. By and large, Bertrude kept focused on her work, whether casting small enchantments on imbued talismans. The works brought her a sense of purpose, and she would say, in the Commonwealth, such services were strictly forbidden. But on the downside, there was a real need for simple luxuries, which she competing slug market could not always provide. Thus did Big Bertrude to continue to live up to her name, and the tales of her days in the Nightwings made her that much more the living legend. So she's there to make enchantments to help people cope with things down there. Hopefully she has an enchantment that makes food flourish and taste better. After her liberation, Daddario soon became an icon of the movement that led to the collapse of the Commonwealth and the rise of the Serra Union. Her military prowess and experience led to key victories in clashes against Commonwealth loyalties. Each time, she was able to subdue the opposition, avoiding lethal force. In the uncertain times that followed, Daddario's seasoned expertise often came to play, both matters of security and of state. For instance, she conscripted and trained a team of volunteers in public safety. The community did not know what to make of such a cordial bunch at first, but soon came to value their service. They have stood for the people ever since, and we celebrate their founding day each year. She remained close with Edwin all through the experience, and they supported each other through their struggles many, many times. She kept an eye on Ray, who nonetheless demonstrated a surprising knack to get by on her own. But Daddario was always willing to provide assistance just in case. She continued training on her own, a regimen that grew stricter with each passing year. There were those who sought to train with her, and she sometimes obliged. There remained one other constant in her life. She would always remember her days among the Nightwings, and with fondness, for the most part. So she became like the guard, or the guardian, or the trainer of the new regiment place. Man, I miss you, man. After rookie Greentail earned back his freedom, he returned to a lavish welcome ceremony in the Commonwealth, as was the Tennessee for liberated exiles. It was everything he could have hoped for, and soon he was well off, surrounded by luxury, and choosing between various exciting opportunities. However, he must have given in to his better judgment, as he did end up siding with Wilfred Sandalwood's revolutionary forces, as he promised. On the night of Scribe's return, Greentail kept busy barking orders to Wilfred's agents as the situation grew tenser. He took rather well to leadership. When dawn finally came, and it became clear to the Commonwealth that everybody knew would be no more, he realized many new opportunities awaited. He began quite a lucrative career for himself, manufacturing and selling replica merchandise inspired by the downside. His main struggle was to meet demand. An aspect of his conscience cautioned him against making light of such a thing. But the money was too good, and soon his family was as well off as he always said. He also kept in close touch with Gilman, ever the perfect practice partner. They would train together often, taking care to stay in tip-top shape as much as possible throughout the years. Greentail always did his best to keep in touch with all his many friends, and knew he owed his fortunes to them. He made a special point of staying close with the group of friends he came to know so well during the time with the Nightwings, wherever they were. They shared a special understanding that put even Greentail at a loss of words sometimes. After the rites ended, Meetha Thane parted ways with other Nightwings, stating that she needed time alone. She reappeared sometime after the fall of Commonwealth, although she experienced a mild surprise at the news. She claimed to have no knowledge of what went on, including what role the High-Wing remnants had in the events that reshaped the world in the other side. For her part, Meetha feigned little interest, making the point that they were stuck, and what happened elsewhere had little to do with them now. Someone with whom she kept in contact was the bog dweller, Big Fir Tree. They would discuss all sorts of matters long into the night, and sometimes hunt together too. One day, while traveling to Black Basin, Meetha ran into her blood sister Meetha for the first time since the conclusion of the rites. The reunion was not an admirable as admiral as Meetha might have hoped, and Meetha, still resentful of their history together, turned violent. Meetha would later brush aside the incident, though always had an injury to show for it. Yet, for that point on, the Blood Sisters were back on speaking terms, at least for the most part. Having long since felt as though she had no home to call her own, Meetha continued traveling about the downside. As a tempest swept across the land, changing its features, she found in it a sublime beauty, and in the starless nights, she still could see just fine. She had such travels tended to remind her of when she was younger, and could fly unfettered. Hey Ray, how you doing? The Commonwealth had never provided a sense of home for the one they had called Ray the Wretched, so she was surprised on her return that she was so well treated. She felt uneasy about it, and besides, she knew that she would do her best to fulfill the pledge she had made to her friends. This is a lot of reading, but good story. Even she could not have expected the impact she would have on the events that followed, which gave the rise to our Sound Union. Ray stood with others on the night of the scribe's return. She did not take up arms, but spoke of the scribes with conviction and sincerity. Others were so caught off guard that it helped quell the danger of the situation. After the fall of the Commonwealth, there was a renewed interest in the legend of the 8 scribes, and many new interpretations of their histories and teachings. Ray found herself at the center of all this. Her way of speaking continued to compel a growing audience. She swayed many people in their astralist beliefs. Soon, the 8th word, which had lost favor with the people during the reign of the Commonwealth, sought her out and asked her formally to join, and she did right away. Through it all, she would wonder how her little friend Keizo had fared. While they were divided now by a great distance, he always remained in her heart. She cited her relationship with Daddario at the single most important in her life. Daddario would always provide for her circumspect perspective and the wisdom of experience. One day, she encountered one of her former adversaries called Almer Oldheart, who had served the Fate. She remembered him much more than he did her, though only just at first. Their shared experience in the rites and their different points of view about the scribes formed the base of what grew to be a long-lasting relationship. Ray always was devoted to her faith, but more so with her friends. Many people in the Sovereign Union, cited that her gentle manner was unwavering conviction helped them brave the changing times with courage and with grace. So many people left to read about. I'm gonna go through all of them. I just hope that I don't normally talk this long, do I? Maybe I'm just getting paranoid.
Concealta vidias.
How you doing, my lifelong friend? Well, since the downside. After his liberation, Edwin was instrumental in the events leading to the fall of the Commonwealth, and was vital to the outcome of the plan.
He was the one who led the raid on the stronghold where Archjustice Androblus the Ninth was holed up when the fighting grew fierce. So that snot finally got what was coming to him, I think. I'm not into violence, but still, he was downright just poop. With him, and thereafter, was one of the winged harps of the high wing raiments, later identified as Fikani Shang. Their bond was vital to the peace that followed. So, the peace followed because Edwin was there and found the harp that he liked. In all his days as leader in the Saran Union, Edwin oft confided in his friend Daddario. Despite her intense manner, there was no one whom he trusted more in times when circumspection was required. Edwin would often think back about the vow he made at the beginning of his quest for freedom. Although he cherished all the friendships he made, he had pledged to Daddario, Rookie Greentail, and the Reader of the Nightwings that they might all be free again together. He had broken that vow, for in the end, not all of them were able to return. Terrible guilt over this darkened his mood for a time. However, the others whom he still knew lifted his spirits. Much like he had often lifted theirs, all the Nightwings knew the stakes. While the others who stood in the Nightwings were not all able to remain in contact thus, Edwin thought of each of them often, and so, in turn, did they often think of him. Because I didn't go back, the three of them, which I wanted all of them to go back, because those two were friends, and he was one with them from the beginning. I wanted them all to be gone out first. Edwin wanted all four of us. He vowed all four of us from the beginning will be out free. I could have gone free, but I made my decision. Let's see how Keizo's doing. Once the rites had ended, the imp Keizo had a job to do, quite unlike most exiles trapped forever in downside. The lone minstrel asked that he watch over the Black Wagon, which the Nightwings had used extensively for travel and for shelter all throughout their quest. Keizo obliged, for he knew the wagon, as well as its drive-in's inhabitants, perhaps better than anyone. What became of the wagon exactly was never verified, as evidence of Keizo's thorough work. After that, he liked to while away his days with any of his friends, or else with fellow imps. Santa would sometimes call for his assistance, and Keizo was always happy to oblige. The two would often reminisce about their times with the lone minstrel. He often chirped about the Reader of the Nightwings, with whom he built quite a rapport. The Reader understood him perhaps better than anyone. You are the exile of the Commonwealth, sentenced to life in downside. Indeed, Keizo would often express wistful gratitude for all his time with the Nightwings, and their many adversaries throughout the land that was always his home. And their many adventures throughout the land that was always his home. Other than that, Keizo would sometimes help interpret the messenger imps relaying news to and from the Sauron Union. Despite having gained significant celebrity abroad, he never let it go to his head. And he would go fishing in the Sea of Solace at every single chance he got. When the worm Gilman returned to the Commonwealth, he believed that he had regained something even more important than his freedom: his honor. Gilman relinquished his knighthood and declined the opportunity to serve as captain in the Blood Border. He is not interested in fighting any longer. Yet, as is sometimes the case, that those such as he, a circumstance soon came about in which there came a need for him to once again make use of his military training. Doesn't this music sound like Brainstar from Metroid? And because I played Metroid at some point in my life in the early stages, so probably Metroid 1 or something in Game Boy era. But I was referring to the soundtrack from Brainstar battle map stage from Smash Brothers. He fought that night of the scribe's return. He fought with all his might. He faced other worm knights. He cared only for the cause. Then the matter was at last put to rest. Gilman truly knew his time as a knight had ended. He declared to all those in earshot that he would never fight again. Unless, of course, there arose some other extraordinary set of circumstances, again requiring him to fight. But he clearly hoped not. He still trained regularly, just in case, especially with his fleet-footed friend, Rika Greentail. Now, this is also like in Boruto. If you guys are watching Boruto, the sequel to Naruto, they're in a time of peace, but they're still training, though they have no one often enough to really train their skills on. So that is the feeling that if you do not practice something if you don't practice something, even if you know it's not going to be necessary or feel it's not going to be necessary in the future because of time of peace or something, it could go away. And those that have been training that come to attack you in the future, if they were to, you would have lost the knowledge of how to fight, and you had to practice from scratch again, and lost the knowledge of how to fight from the past. All those jutsus, or from their world, all those fighting styles, how to dodge, how to block, how to fight, parry, and all those things. If they are lost to someone going, I know how to do it, but I don't want to teach it because I don't want anyone to learn how to fight, so things would still be at peace. The thing is, those around you could use it for defense too. So mainly, some things like that. I'm not saying learn to fight, but learn to fight to defend. Those that use it for fighting, those that have learned it as well for defending, at least can stand up to them. He was always grateful for having studied under the reader of the Nightwings, without whom he would never have completed his penance. Was there a time? I feel like there was a time where we could have rejected one or two people that came to our group. I feel like he and Meetha were those that we can actually reject from the team. Or was everyone, other than the original three, able to be rejected? I think Volfred was always going to be there. Fir Tree was always going to be there because he invited her and she was going to be there regardless. But I feel like everyone could have been turned away at some point. I'm glad I didn't, because friends! And everyone turned out to be great. Why would you turn away a potential friend? Because of this, and perhaps because they were on opposite sides of the world now, Gilman dedicated his life to him. By that point, he had long forgotten about his days under the leadership of Sir Deluge, his former commander. Breaking free of his abusive leadership was the first step towards gaining a bit of self-respect. Gilman never did return to his homeland of the Sea Dominion, and was content to lend a monastic life on a small residence in the halls. It was just high up enough to make him keep striving to conquer his fear of heights. Other than that, the intense daily training regimen and the occasional visit from an old companion was more than enough to keep him optimistic and engaged. He knew by that honor was not something to be won, but a contract with oneself to be renewed each day. I want to read all this, and I will. My throat's just getting sore from constant talking. Maybe I just need a drink.